Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. Buckle your seatbelts and, hop onto the ride, because in tonight's special season preview episode, we're going to take you from the lows of the Tristan McKenzie injury news to the highs of some extension news just announced today and everything in between. With me here to break it all down, my usual co-host, double play partner, James Ellifritz, Believeland owner and operator Kevin Sledz, and Believeland contributor and co-host of the new Believeland podcast Double Play CLE, Paul Huffaker. And guys, it's a great day to be a fan of the Cleveland Guardians. How are you feeling about the state of the team right now heading into the 2023 season?
I'm super excited, especially with today's news, finding out about Jimenez. So the former Indians catcher, Chris Jimenez, who spent several seasons with the Cleveland Indians, and Ellis Burks as well. They've agreed to be a part of the rotation, joining Guardians Live.
Who wants to tell them we're talking about?
Is that what
our top 5 MVP starting shortstop or starting second baseman should be starting shortstop? Andres Jimenez.
I got it. Okay.
Agreed to a 7-year, $106.5 million extension to be in Cleveland, essentially just as long as Jose Ramirez is. They did a huge thing in locking up another piece of this core while he was still affordable. Guys, how are we feeling about this? I, for one, was shocked that he was the one. Not that I'm not happy, but I was shocked that he agreed to it.
A very team-friendly deal, too.
Yeah, it seems to be a trend. I don't know if Jose convinced him to stop the bus.
I think that's a lot of it is Jose's influence on this team, because you look at where this team goes is going to be wherever Jose Ramirez goes. If he's good, the team's good. If he's bad, the team's bad. So whatever pleases Jose, let's do it.
That kind of gets us into another interesting tidbit. I was on vacation over the weekend. Kevin, thank you once again for doing a great job filling in. Excellent interview with Mike Capriz. If you guys haven't listened, make sure you go back and listen to that after this episode is finished. But I'm riding through the mountains of Tennessee, and I go through patches of getting service, and I see like Ahmed eyeball tweets and muscle emojis, and Guardians Twitter is literally in a full-on panic. Like, my feed, people are tagging me, my feed's going crazy. We hit a curve in the mountain and I'm back to no service and I have no idea what's going on. And it makes you think, we have this Jimenez news today. They're paying him this money. We know he's shortstop caliber. He definitely should be the starting shortstop, regardless of his Gold Glove last year at second. So looking back on those cryptic kind of tweets, and then, Meisel, they approached Ahmed's representatives too about an extension. Do you guys think that's him kind of like, oh, wow, okay, so you're talking to him, we're not, really making any ground over here? Or you think he's just trolling, or maybe he's just happy for his boy who he came over from the Mets with?
Yeah, I would say he's definitely happy for his teammate. I'm just excited for him to be established now with our team, just like Jose, for this long-term contract, because last year when I was watching him end of April, beginning of May, and I was just wondering whether or not he was going to be the guy versus Ahmed Rosario, meaning from a all-star standpoint. And man, did he prove me wrong, because I had some concerns whether or not he was going to be able to put up some power, hit for average. But look, the Gold Glove. So he had a just fantastic season. Played some shortstop in the WBC as well. So he's definitely set the plate for himself that he can either be established as our long-term second baseman, or if he needs to move over to shortstop and play a little short, he could do that too. So I'm just thankful to have him as part of our franchise, and the Dolan spent some money.
Yeah.
Why is that always the thing? The Dolan's spending money. Come on, guys.
On the Guardians. I'm sorry. I meant to be more specific.
At the end of the day, they're
Not their
still the
car
owners
payment.
of the team. That's not going to change. So we can complain about them not spending enough money, or we can watch the teams that are spending money, like the San Diego Padres, who are going to implode this season. I hope people understand San Diego is going to implode upon itself as soon as Fernando Tatis gets back to that roster. I'm perfectly happy building our franchise internally, building from these young talent, extending the ones that deserve it. And yeah, we don't spend a lot of money. We're not out there talking about Aaron Judge or Carlos Correa or any of the big name free agents. I don't care. I have Jose Ramirez. I have Josh Bell, Shane Bieber, Emmanuel Clase, who right now is the best closer in baseball actively. I've got a strong team. It is bird in the hand, two in the bush. There's a reason that one's in the NL, one's in the AL. I'm perfectly happy with the fact that the Dolans don't fork out hundreds of millions of dollars to players that genuinely don't pan out. Juan Gonzalez, anybody?
It's interesting too, because I feel like the baseball season, it's so long where I feel like there's so many more factors that go into play than just how much money did you spend in the off season. I think there's a lot of organizations, in the AL, the Astros are kind of the model right now. And they were really, really bad for a whole lot of years before they got this dynasty kind of cooking. And honestly, I don't think they're that far away from a regression, especially with the Jose Altuve injury. You have a team like the Guardians who have found really nothing but contention under Terry Francona, even if it's a wild card exit, even if they don't win a title, they lose game 7 of the World Series. I know winning a World Series is the goal, and they know that. They have Josh Bell on a 1-year deal, but they've become masters at building their system up. They were able to fill their 2 biggest needs last offseason in catcher and first base versus left-handed pitching, lack of power. They were able to fill those needs, and they still have every single prospect at their disposal to really go make that splash move at the deadline. And like Paul said, they didn't have to spend $300 million on Trey Turner, which, don't get me wrong, I love Trey Turner, but the way they're building these guys through their system, they don't need Trey Turner. They got these guys here who grew up together in the system. They want to win. They want to be here. I don't care how much their extensions are worth. It's not my money, and I'm not accepting the money. If these guys are happy with what Larry Dolan is dishing out to them, I'm not going to sit here and complain that we only signed Andrés Giménez to $106.5 million over 7 years. I could care less. All I care about, he's here. He wants to be here. We don't have to worry about him hitting the open market and making potentially $300 million.
I agree, and I'm very happy at the extension. Like I said, team friendly, but he's wrapped up for 7 more years. He'll be here as long as Jose, like you said. The Rosario stuff is kind of confuses me because there's rumors that there's 2 or 3, 4 more guys in the works for extensions. If he's one of them, we've talked about it before. All the prospects, Brian Rocchio, just about ready to come up. He'll be ready at some point this year. Jose Tena, Angel Martinez, Tyler Freeman. I mean, the list goes on. Guys that are knocking on the door. So are you packaging those guys to get a top flight starting pitcher, which I think they could use this year? If there's a move to be made at the deadline, I think that's definitely it. I'm not too confident in the back end of the rotation. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so a couple things there. Kind of to wrap up the Rosario stuff, and I kind of mentioned this to you earlier, Kevin. I think I saw Willie Hood talking about it too, and he worded it a lot more eloquently than I probably will. But the only way it really makes sense is if it's a short-term deal, you get them under control for a few years. And from the Guardians' perspective, you're adding some control to him so he doesn't hit the open market and you lose him for nothing except a compensatory draft pick, which is fine. We know they love those. But why not try to lock him up for a few years so then when this offseason comes around, he was going to be the best guy hitting the market. It's a very weak shortstop class compared to this last offseason. So then you have all these teams who need a shortstop potentially getting in a bidding war, having to bite the bullet and trade for a guy like Ahmed Rosario, where you're going to get a lot more in return, especially if he had a good year. You're going to get a lot more in return than if you just let him walk. So that's the only way that I'm okay with that. But this rotation, and anybody who follows me on Twitter, anybody I interact with, anybody who knows me, knows that I have just now regained my voice from screaming for the Guardians to trade for a starting pitcher all off season. And this was before the news of Tristan McKenzie potentially being out 2 months with that teres muscle strain. And I've been telling people since the news broke that my stance kind of remains the same. I'm more worried about Cal Quantrill, Zach Plesac, and Aaron Savali than I am really about anybody who's going to step in to kind of replace those Tristan McKenzie innings. The timing's okay. I'm glad that hopefully, praying for no setbacks, he can be back by June-ish, kind of be fresh for the stretch run. That's kind of like a deadline acquisition in itself, in addition to whatever move you go out and make. But guys, I'm legitimately like really concerned about the back end of our rotation, and it's scary how the bullpen could be taxed in the meantime.
Well, as far as McKenzie goes, it would be nice to have, those innings that won't be on his arm and on his body going into playoffs, to where maybe he can take on and pitch more innings in the playoffs. And like you mentioned, just be fresh, that we're going to need that. I still think, I've been saying it all off season, that one of these guys are going to come up from the minors and they're going to be that Jarrett Wright role where they come in and they're a rookie starting pitcher and they're going to light the American League on fire. And I really think that's the key to how far we go in the playoffs this year. I don't think anybody's talking about that we're not going to the playoffs, right? None of us are saying that.
No.
I think we're definitely going to the playoffs. So, but yeah, the back end, those guys, what's the over under on how many mounds Plesac punched this year? Is it going to go up to 2? Is it going to double that? Is he going to not do it because he's got his head on straight this year? Is he going to get some run support? So, it's fun to talk about now, and the realities come of the start of the regular season that's been put in, and see how the Savalis and the Plesacs are going to do this year.
Paul, what you have anything to add on the rotation?
Well, with the rotation, the Tristan McKenzie stuff is very disheartening. I've loved watching this kid come up through the system and just absolutely dominate in every facet every time he comes up. He's one of those players that, honestly, he's an ace in most other organizations. And that's all you really need to say about Tristan McKenzie. And this is still a developing pitcher that we're talking about. I'm very, very worried about this injury. I don't think this is good for us. I think he's going to be out longer. I'm really worried this is going to be a lingering issue in the same vein as a Jacob deGrom in his final 2 years in New York with the Mets. This is a very pragmatic situation, and we whatever we can with this rotation, because I'm not set on Savale, Plesac. Look, my rookie of the year for the Guardians, is spoiler alert, is Hunter Gaddis, because he's now got a chance to prove himself. And he's going to prove himself on March 31st against the Seattle Mariners, a team that took Houston to 16, 17, 18 innings, broke my freaking record by 1 week. I was at the game. That annoys me to this very second. Seriously, I sat there for 15 innings, no runs, ladies and gentlemen.
There too.
And then you give me this amazing walk-off home run only to ruin my record the next week. I hate the Houston Astros for that. I hate the Houston Astros for a lot of things, but that's high on the list.
Yeah. That's the most recent.
Easy to hate.
So you mentioned Hunter.
I really think Hunter Gaddis is going to be okay. I think he's going to be solid.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned him because the reports started coming out today. He's gonna take Tristan's spot, quite literally. They're gonna leave everybody else on their schedule. He's gonna slide in and pitch behind Bieber on Friday, to kind of keep the other guys on their normal rest. And it's interesting because Hunter Gaddis pitched well this spring, so much so that he earned one of those open bullpen spots along with Tim Herron, who I'm so excited to see up in the majors this year. But now Hunter Gaddis, they're probably going to stretch him out along the way, have a piggyback behind him. Xavier Curry is going to slide into his bullpen spot, which I like him too. I think he had kind of a tough spring, some tough luck. Gabriel Arias had that error at third in the one game against the Angels, I think, where he got kind of lit up, but he looked good last year. I mean, he looked good in his few starts, and he got kind of blooped to death by the Detroit Tigers. No real hard contact off of him. He's got good stuff. And that's the thing. The depth just has to step up right now. I think right now, the schedule is pretty favorable in April. You got teams like the A's. You get some of those out of the way. If they can tread water, whether they're in first place, that doesn't really matter in April and May. Just be towards the top, be in contention. And I think you're going to see Chris Antonetti pull the trigger because Paul mentioned you have to fix everything around Tristan McKenzie right now. You can't just rely on him to come back. And, here, our rotation's better now because we have Tristan back. Because you mentioned Jacob deGrom. You don't know how effective he's going to be when he does come back. I know we all want to have the rose-colored glasses on and be like, okay, Tristan's fresh, 0 innings on his arm. That's how I've been choosing to look at it, because if I don't, I'll cry. Because I had him in I was going to put money on him to win the Cy Young this year. That's how confident I was in him having a breakout season. And
I thought he was the better pitcher. I think he's better than Shane Bieber.
Oh, 100%. And I'm fine, honestly. I was fine letting Bieber walk as long as you can extend Tristan. That's always been my thoughts, and that doesn't really change now either. I don't think Bieber is going to be one of these extensions announced. I think, you got maybe a year, maybe 2 left with Shane Bieber. But I was talking with someone last night. Sometimes it takes something like this to throw your guys into the fire and kind of speed their process up a little bit. Because with Gaddis and Curry now in the majors, you have a couple rotation spots open at Columbus. Is Gavin Williams going to go up to Columbus? Bybee going to start in Columbus? This next wave of arms can kind of start a level up if they were going to be delayed down in Akron, just because of so many guys that we have. So it's going to give them a chance to cycle through some guys, but it's scary. It's definitely scary when I look at the rotation as a whole now. And Shane Bieber is not the healthiest either. There's always a concern with him with past shoulder injuries. He's looked good in spring, but it's always a concern. And it's just disheartening that the injury bug's hitting us already when we had such good luck with injuries, lack of injuries. You had Jimenez and Jose, but they played through it.
Mel,
so
we kind of left out the guy in the middle, Cal Quantrill. I mean, here's a guy that
that was by default.
well,
make me happy.
Thing is, he went undefeated at home last year, right? So can we anticipate that he's going to do that again?
You can't tell me there's not some crazy
Likely
luck
not.
in there, though. That's one of those fluke things.
Right. So he's going to have to. Yeah, I hope. Yeah, when they kept showing that, and then he pitched in the Yankee Stadium. I'm like, what are we doing? Why is he not pitching at home?
Because Tito doesn't believe in those types of things.
Yeah,
that's not the Tito method of management. And you were also talking about the minor leagues. For a lot of these guys, you can only learn so much in the minor leagues before you got to face major league players. I mean, you talk to any player, read any article, they'll tell you the same thing. There's a difference between AAA and major league, and it is like going from it's like driving an automatic car. Now you're driving a stick shift. Good luck. So I want to see these guys get some time and really show that they're going to be that next generation, that next future. Because who knows? That could be the ticket to beyond the ALDS this year.
I feel a lot better about Hunter and Xavier knowing that they got a little taste of the big leagues last year and each got a couple starts in. And, I think it showed in spring training. I think Hunter Gaddis is more poised. Looks like a different pitcher. So, if he could step in and pitch better than Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali, which isn't very hard to do at this point.
Yeah.
But I have 0.000 confidence in Zach Plesac.
None.
As do many.
He makes the
1%.
team by default, basically.
I have 1%.
1%? Okay.
1%. His father or grandfather, uncle, whatever it is, Dan Plesac, was a great pitcher. He's got to have 1% of that in him. If he has 1% of that in him, I'll take it.
I'll take the 1 at this point.
I like when Savali's healthy, he can be serviceable.
I like Savali. I do. He's got it in him. And
then Cal, ideally, he's a back end 4 guy, but
he's a 5. Like to me, he's on a great team. He's a 5, maybe a 4, not a 3.
He's not a number 3 in the playoffs. That's for sure.
No. And that was my biggest thing. And maybe Pablo Lopez wasn't the ideal fit. And obviously the Twins gave up Luis Arraez to get him. But my whole thing was, you cannot have Cal Quantrill facing the Yankees 2 times in the ALDS.
No.
You just can't. And it's okay if maybe come the trade deadline, more guys will be available. Maybe a Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, a really like ace type guy to pair with Shane Bieber. You need that come the postseason. I mean, the Yankees picked up Carlos Rodon to go with Garrett Cole and Nestor Cortez. Obviously the Astros lost Justin Verlander. They have their top prospect they're Daniel Espino, they're Gavin Williams ready to step in and take that spot. And Houston's a pitching factory just like us. You can never have enough good arms come playoff time where, I believe we all think the Guardians are going to end up this year.
Okay, but here's my question to you then. If you want Corbin Burns, are you willing to give up the farm? Because you're going to have to mortgage the farm to get him.
And
the Brewers know what they have there.
You got to extend them too. Are you going to be able to extend, him and Tristan? Then you have Bieber. So you're basically...
If you get Corbin Burns, I don't know that you extend Tristan at that point. I think you would focus more on Corbin Burns, who has a much greater track record, a proven track record, and a postseason track record.
That'd be an interesting conversation because obviously Bieber's out at that point. You can recoup some of the prospects that you lose trading for Burns, Woodruff, whoever that pitcher is. You can get them back by trading Shane Bieber. Maybe not all of them, but a good chunk of them you're going to get back. So I hope that's the way they choose to look at that. So we have our rotation set in Seattle. I mentioned this, the schedule's not too bad in April. You got Oakland, you got Seattle twice, the Yankees. Then you got the Nationals, Tigers, Marlins, Rockies, Red Sox, who are going to be interesting. They're kind of a team that's teetering on the edge here. But what do you guys think of them carrying 3 catchers? We heard Cam Gallagher won that backup spot, but Valoria also got one of those final roster spots, which I just find really interesting. And that kind of tells me they really do want to get Gabriel Arias and Will Brennan a good chunk of at-bats. What are your guys' thoughts on that? That's odd for this team.
I mean, now it's important because you're trying to make sure that you have solid backup for Zunino and Naylor gets his time down in AAA. But I think by the end of the season, it won't matter. I can't see us carrying 3 unless, they bring Bo up like they did last year where we already have 2 on the major league roster. But I would, my opinion is they bring him up later in the year, though. It's more that he's going to be serving as that number 2 or, getting maybe rotating starts with Zunino.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, but I kind of have my first hot take of the night kind of branching off of this topic here, and we can kind of just all rotate hot takes from this point on. We'll wrap up the episode with our season, our record prediction, and where we think the Guardians season will end. But I mentioned that bench of Gabriel Arias and Will Brennan, huge upgrade over last season, but I think Will Brennan's going to be the starting center fielder by May. I think Miles Straw is going to be that guy. And honestly, no knock on Miles. Love Miles Straw, great dude. But I think his perfect role, what he was doing for the Houston Astros, is coming in off the bench, playing outstanding defense, pinch running, stealing bases, really impacting the game that way where his bat is exposed at the bottom of the lineup every single time through the order. Because it got to the point last year, they weren't even throwing him balls anymore. He wasn't even able to walk because pitchers are challenging him down the middle of the plate because he's doing no damage with those pitches. So I think Will Brennan's going to step in. Yeah, Will Brennan's going to step in. He's going to snag that center field spot, and he might even get some Rookie of the Year votes because I don't think he's giving it back up once he gets it.
I mean, that's a good call. I mean, Straw, he hit his first home run in spring.
He turned on it.
Yeah, what was that, last
weekend? That was a long single. Was it humid?
Yeah, the wind was blowing out in Arizona, I think.
Right. Hey, you take what you can get to get a long ball.
That's some gusty wind.
But you're right. He's a great glove. Anybody that climbs a fence to get in a Yankee fan's face last year, I like that.
Yeah.
So you like his grit.
For sure.
His teammates love him. But I think the batting average will probably improve, but Will Brennan's got to play. And we got to get him out there. Same with Gabriel Arias. I mean, getting him out there and getting some more playing time is going to be beneficial as well. So these guys are going to be pushed. And if you're not performing, there's going to be somebody right behind you that has the opportunity to take your place. So, what we see in April is not what we're going to see at the end of the year. We all know that. Every time you see that opening day roster come out, if you watch it a year later, you're like, man, I forgot that guy was on the team. It just happens every year.
Yeah.
So, and it's for a good thing.
No, I absolutely love Will Brennan, and I agree with everything that Mel said. I think that is the perfect role for Miles Straw as that defensive replacement, pinch runner, stealing bases late in the game, and fill in fourth outfielder. But I absolutely love Will Brennan, and I think he's going to be another Stephen Kwan, maybe with a little more pop in his bat. And I love Gabriel Arias as well, and I can't wait to see what he can do healthy. I know he was banged up a lot last year, even though he just got hit on the hand again. But supposedly he's okay. But it seems like those two are going to get a lot of playing time this year.
Yeah, and it begs the question too. I got SpongeBob on my hoodie for anybody watching on YouTube. I thought it was the perfect thing to wear because I'm not buying into the Oscar Gonzalez regression. I think he's going to hit 20 home runs. Maybe it's not enough, but I think with Josh Bell in the lineup too, Oscar Gonzalez, I think it was Andre Knott. He had a story earlier in spring training that Oscar Gonzalez was up at the fields by his house every single day in the Dominican Republic from sun up on, working on finding that power in his swing. And Will Brennan said it too. Like, Garrett Cole found a hole in his swing in the ALDS and he beat himself up about it all offseason. What do I do to fix this? Like, how do I cover that part of the plate? And I think it's going to come down, especially with George Valera on his way up. Eventually, you're going to have to choose between Oscar Gonzalez, Will Brennan, George Valera, with Stephen Kwan pretty much cemented in left field. You only have a couple spots where you're going to have to start choosing, who's the best to keep on this team long term? Who do we want to extend? Questions like that. But I think just focusing on 2023, I think Oscar Gonzalez is going to provide us a lot more power. I mean, think of how many times he missed just hitting the top of that wall at Progressive Field last year. I mean, let's keep the vibes of that home run Paul was talking about in the wild card round versus Tampa Bay. He launched that ball. Maybe he's starting to find something. If he could give us 20 home runs, I really like where our offense is at, and I don't think they're going to need to upgrade that.
I just want to see grown men and women singing SpongeBob SquarePants again. Because that
dressed up in SpongeBob costumes.
Like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life, is like I'm sitting in the upper deck and there's like 80, 90-year-old man and woman, like a couple that have been coming to games probably since they were at Municipal Stadium, and they're just belting out the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song, and they know the words. We're not talking like they're singing along to the song. This is after the song had ended. That's a vibe. That's an energy we can use.
Yeah.
My worry is, I always worry about the sophomore slump.
Oh yeah.
Because there's always one. And you've got two dynamic players in Kwan and in Gonzalez. And I'm worried that one of them is going to slump hard, and I can't figure out which one it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't fear Kwan's slump. I really don't.
No.
Just because
I
he's
like
such a
his
contact
approach.
hitter.
He's a pure hitter.
And then you got the with the shift gone. He's going to steal a lot of bases this year. I hope he leads the league in runs.
See, that's something we haven't even talked about are the big rule changes this year that are going to impact everybody. You've got the bigger bases. So that changes the game in terms of stolen bases. And do you stretch a single to a double? Those types of things. And this is the team that can do that stuff. The shift, look, the shift is what it was. Somebody's going to find a new way to shift. This is not over yet. I think Boston had already come up with something where they pulled their left fielder into the shift's second base position. So technically there were two infielders on each side of second base. And then they had center field, right field cover as a two-man outfield. I'm not against the shift. I never was. I think you have to work within the confines of the game. The thing that worries me is the pitch clock and the fact that we are less than 2 days away at the time of this recording from opening day, and Major League Baseball has made changes to the pitch clock rules already.
Yeah.
That can't happen anymore. You've set these rules, you have to play by them now. There's not going to be any of this midway through the season, oh, it's all-star break and the TV ratings are down 5%. Well, we need to find a way to put more balls in play, so let's have an automatic pitcher out there now. Because that feels like what we're doing here in some regards.
Paul, if you compare it though to the shot clock in basketball, how many times are you actually sitting back watching and pay attention to the shot clock? I mean, I really think for the amount of violations that they have in a game, I really think it will eventually just kind of like one of those things. Oh yeah, that's right. He wasn't in the box, or he wasn't looking at the pitcher. I think eventually it will just become a normal part of the game. But I tell you what, these West Coast games to start off, it should mean that we're going to get some more sleep because the game should be over a little bit sooner on these West Coast swings. So I don't care Friday night, but
I'm not necessarily against the pitch clock. I'm just saying that is something that is going to change the way you fundamentally play the game, especially pitchers, because you talk to pitchers that are coming up through the ranks. They've already played with this pitch clock through the minor leagues. They're used to it. It's guys like Justin Verlander and Jacob deGrom and the aces of each staff out there that doesn't know what this is like because they haven't experienced this. And we've already seen Verlander screw this up. Yeah. DeGrom hasn't yet, but he's still on the mend. I worry about somebody like a Shane Bieber who hasn't had as much experience with the pitch clock. I worry about anybody that we might be bringing in to our organization pitching wise that doesn't have that same fundamental understanding of it, because that's going to be something that as of right now, we're bringing up through the minor leagues. If we're bringing in fresh talent, like a Corbin Burns, we don't know if they have that same grasp on it that we want them to have.
I worry about late game situations with James Karinchak.
Yes.
Playing with the ball, playing with his head.
He's for sure the biggest one, I think. And you're like Paul said, you're still seeing issues with it too. Like Max Scherzer, of course, he's been the one like, well, it didn't say, is it 0.00, getting all technical with it. And again, same with the shift. Guys are going to try to find the loopholes and try and find the ways, well, I asked for a new ball, it should restart. And all these kinks are kind of going to have to work themselves out. But I think overall, the majority of the rules being implemented by Major League Baseball does help a team like the Guardians, who like to run, who like to take the extra base. I think those things are going to help them. And we saw it made finding a catcher with good pop time, that good defensive catcher that they already seek. It made it that much more important with the new pickoff rules. You can't have guys just throwing over to first base 15 times, slowing down a game. There's going to be times the pitcher can't throw over to first again. The runner knows it, and you have to rely on your catcher, to bounce up and throw that ball to second, which kind of brings up, what do we expect from Mike Zunino this year, realistically, coming off the thoracic outlet surgery? He had a really good year in 2021 before missing most of last year with the surgery. He's a guy I can't really figure out what exactly to expect from him. but I know that he's going to be better than Austin Hedges was last year. His worst case scenario won't be as bad as Austin Hedges was. So I don't see any other way other than him being an upgrade.
I agree. And one more thing about the rule changes, the most important thing. When you're asking for a new ball, make sure your catcher keeps his glove up long enough for the umpire to put the ball in the glove.
Oh my God.
was
We better
ridiculous.
not deal with that.
Poor
all year.
JT.
The rule changes will mean nothing if that's how umpires are going to act throughout the whole season, because that's just annoying.
But that's officials in every sport.
It
The
is,
letter
yeah.
of the law is the problem that we're having with these rules and these rule changes, is that everybody's like, well, it specifically says you have to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, then you're penalized. No, spirit of the rule, not the letter of the law. You are not trying to catch somebody doing 75 down the highway. Just let the game play. I'm of the belief that umpires should not have the ability to eject anybody. That should come from New York City. If it's that important and that egregious, then the only person who should have that say is New York City, because it's already going to be reviewed by Major League Baseball anyways.
Well, Paul, in that
why
case,
give
they
them
would
that authority?
all those guys would have to be mic'd up then, because they'd all have to be listening in a studio in New York to figure out all the things that are said, which would actually be entertaining for us if we could tap into every little thing that's being said.
I mean, they're going to be mic'd up sooner or later, at least
Yeah,
home
they
plate
will.
umpire when we get the robot ump. That's coming. That's
Well, the robot ump,
only...
he won't have any feelings. Well, it won't even be a he. It'll be gender neutral robo ump.
It.
Yes.
So kind of back to the hot takes. I kind of feel like I'm on fire over here. You guys are just kind of like playing off of them. Fire them away if you got them. But I think Stephen Kwan's going to take Luis Arraez's place, and he's going to lead the American League in batting average. I kind of think it might not be remotely close either. I don't see the regression for him. I love his approach at the plate. He looks up to Luis Arraez as a hitter. They've had discussions about their hitting approaches and the many series the Twins and Guardians have played. I just see something in Stephen Kwan. I see something in his competitive spirit. I think he's going to do it. I think he's definitely going to lead the league in average, in my opinion. And he's probably going to be one of the best leadoff hitters in the game if he can steal bases at a pretty high clip, which he has the speed to do.
Yeah, I could see him, like I said earlier. I think he could lead the league in runs. I hope you're right with the batting average. But for me, I see Jose Ramirez finally breaking through to win the American League MVP. To me, Aaron Judge is going to be another great player, but I think he's going to have to come down just a little bit off that outstanding career type season last year. And now you have Bell hitting behind Jose. I really think he's got that opportunity to finally close. Now, will the voters be a part of that? I mean, look what Albert Bell did in 95, right? You know, he was the MVP that year, but the voters didn't like him. So Mo Vaughn got it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Cleveland will get disrespected once again in the voting.
My concern with the MVP voting is I think they got it wrong. Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs, amazing. He didn't then pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Ohtani is the MVP until further notice. Until he regresses to a point where his bat or his pitching is just absolutely terrible, that's the MVP. He's going to set the market for both hitting and pitching. This guy's going to make $700 million.
Yeah.
That's the MVP. Nobody's got a chance until he disappears.
You got to see the playoffs, though.
The fact, yeah, and I think that's a part of it. I do think the voters are starting to look at that. They're sick of the Angels missing the playoffs every year with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout.
Yeah.
And I agreed with you, Paul. Up until last year, I thought that Ohtani was just always going to be the MVP because nobody else can hit and pitch at the level that he does. But once Aaron Judge won it last year, it gave me hope that maybe Jose can sneak in there and get his MVP, because I think he's running out of years to be able to break through and finally win it. And I think he wants it. Of course, he wants to win first. He wants a World Series first, but he knows how many top 5 finishes he has. A guy like Jose definitely knows how close he's gotten it. He definitely should have won it in 2020 over Jose Abreu. There's been times where, it could have been argued that he should have won it. He's in Cleveland. whatever the case may be, he hasn't won it. I actually think, though, he's pretty well respected around baseball. Usually when I see conversations about the best third baseman in baseball, I actually see a lot more people in different markets say, oh, it's Jose Ramirez without a doubt. And I would think for sure people are going to say Rafael Devers just because he plays in Boston. But I do think Jose Ramirez gets his flowers around the league. So it certainly wouldn't shock me. I do agree it probably should be Shohei Ohtani. But if the voters don't, if they don't think the way we're thinking, then I think he has a shot.
Mel, if I could comment, Paul, if you take Aaron Judge and put his 62 home runs on the Angels and then put Ohtani on the Yankees, Ohtani's going to win the MVP, right? It's the whole it's the whole Yankee versus the Angels playoff team versus a non-playoff team.
I think that definitely plays into it, but I think what we're underscoring here and maybe overlooking is the effect of sabermetrics on those awards, because they're looking at not just his hitting numbers in regards to Ohtani, but also his pitching numbers. His pitching numbers were good. They were not great. He was not a Cy Young contender. And I think that was the problem for Ohtani. It's tough. And to circle back to something, Mel, that you asked, Zunino's numbers for what you're going to get out of him this year. You're going to get 15 home runs and a 220 batting average. That's it.
Huge upgrade.
It's an upgrade. He's faster than Hedges, that's for sure.
Well,
Hedges is still running to first base right now.
Yeah, I think pretty much anybody is.
Defensively, though, from the catcher position, as great as we've been, it's going to be the most important this year with the amount of teams that are going to be sending runners than it has in past years. Yeah. So hopefully Zunino can gun those guys out at second base and at the backups.
I think my biggest hot take with the Guardians this year is that Josh Bell is going to have a monster year. I know we signed him to the 2-year deal, second-year player option. This is his opportunity. We're unfortunately probably only going to see him for 1 year. It's his opportunity to get that next big contract. And he's already mentioned with the shift ban how much it's going to benefit him. And I just think, I think he's going to hit 30-plus home runs, and he's going to be huge. Hitting behind Jose, and if Josh Bell is a monster year, then that means the Guardians are going to have a great year.
His wife's from Ohio. And they're going to have a baby.
Another thing too. Yeah. He's going to be comfortable. He's got his wife's family right up the road. He said it was a big reason why he wanted to sign here, the free babysitting. I think he's going to be playing loose. Like you said, Kevin, he knows he's playing for that next contract. If he can have that monster year, in the whole middle of our lineup, whether it's Jose Ramirez, Josh Bell, Josh Naylor, Oscar Gonzalez, they're all going to see so much better pitches because you can't just pitch around Jose Ramirez anymore. Yeah. And especially when there was a lefty on the mound, here's Josh Naylor, rumbling up to the plate, who can't hit lefties. Not a knock on him. It's just not something he can do. I'm glad the team realized that, didn't force him into that role anymore, and he can split the time with Josh Bell. Guys, think about how many times last year we saw Jose Ramirez fall on his ass swinging at ridiculous pitches just because he was sick of walking. He wanted to hit the baseball, and they started pitching around him. They intentionally walked him to first base. When it's late in a game, you got 2 runners on base. He wasn't even getting a chance to hit in those situations. Now, when you have Josh Bell coming up behind him, if he's having that monster year, pick your poison. You want to pitch to Jose Ramirez or you want to pitch to Josh Bell, who in this case is having a monster year. And just think of how Jose Ramirez started the year last year up until the All-Star break, up until he hurt that thumb in Colorado. I think we don't appreciate just how monstrous of a year he was having, right? And then we're all kind of like, what the hell is wrong with Jose? There's got to be something wrong with him. This just doesn't make sense. He's still hitting home runs here and there. He's still in the lineup, which I do think still helped because he's still a threat in the lineup. Whether he's at 100% or not, the opposing pitchers still look at him as Jose Ramirez. It got to be like August. I'm like, why are they still pitching around him? He's not even really doing anything right now. But it's because he's Jose Ramirez. And that helps everybody around him in the lineup. So that's what excites me. If Josh Bell has that monstrous year and we can see Jose Ramirez healthy for a full season in a better lineup, Like, I think our offense could do some crazy things this year. When you got the speed at the top, too. And Jimenez is going to be hitting 7th, which is absolutely ridiculous. But, hey, he can jumpstart the bottom of our lineup. He can play second base and jumpstart the bottom third of the order.
So you're saying the All-Star team this year, how many of our guys are going to be on the All-Star team?
Ooh.
Jose? Is Quan going to make it? You got Bieber, Clase, Jimenez.
Clase, Jose for sure. Those are
2.
easy.
Bieber.
I want to say Quan, but he's not going to make it in a stacked AL outfield. I mean, you got, like, he is, I don't know, other than Yordan Alvarez, who I don't even consider a left fielder, like, he is probably top 2 left field in all of baseball. So he probably should, but he doesn't hit enough home runs. He's not the sexy pick. You got Julio Rodriguez, Mike Trout. I don't know. I'd like to think we have more than 2, though. Probably Jimenez again. Let's pray Jimenez again, because it's not popular, but I do worry about regression with Andres Jimenez. I mean, let's be honest here. He's only had 1 season like that. Sure, he had some offensive success with the Mets, but nothing like the 7-win player we saw last year. And that's what scares me. I would have liked to wait 1 more year on him, but they didn't have a choice. He would have priced himself right out of our market really quick if they tried to wait a year. So their hands were tied. They knew they needed to lock him up while they could. So I have my fingers crossed. I'm praying we don't see any regression there. And I know nobody wants to talk about it, and I get it. I want to be happy today, and I don't want to think about it. But I also want to be unbiased and realistic as, a fan of this team and someone who analyzes them.
I think
I guess that's a hot take.
You could have thrown Tristan McKenzie in that All-Star conversation before the injury, obviously.
Yeah.
Big bummer.
I think ultimately you've got 2 All-Stars. You've got Clase, who's going to be a lock as the closer,
year.
possibly the same exact scenario that you had last year in LA where he closes the door. I don't know if Jose or Jimenez are going to be starters on that All-Star roster. It's very tough when you're talking about the All-Star game, because you're talking about those starters are voted on by fans. And this year, you talked about him earlier, Rafael Devers just is going to get a bigger push from that Boston fan base. He's going to start at third base as long as he stays healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Second base is kind of a crapshoot. That's why Jimenez ended up where he did last year.
Altuve out too
And Altuve out. That's a huge bonus for him. It all comes down to semantics and statistics and who is going to be the best at that particular spot in that time. If I were to name another person that could be the All-Star, Josh Bell needs to be that guy. If he's not an All-Star, he's not getting that monster deal at the end of the season.
Good point.
So we'll have a lot of snubs. That's what we're talking about then.
Probably.
That's
right.
what it
How
sounds
angry
like.
are we going to be? But hey.
Go figure. Cleveland disrespected.
Yeah. I mean, it's the
in
All-Star
Seattle
game.
anyways.
Let's fast forward to the trade deadline. Are we happy or are we sad come August 1st? What are we feeling in Cleveland? Where do we think we stand at the trade deadline?
Well, I think we're definitely buyers because of what our record will be. However, I think we all know from our franchise, from our front office, that we do not panic trade. And I think that's what's going to be key. It's going to be what's the market like? What's everybody asking? If somebody wants an unbelievable boatload amount of our prospects just for a starting pitcher, I mean, I could see the temptation, but with our front office, they're very, very selective on making great trades. I mean, if San Diego's trading any players at that time, right? Because they're going to blow up, Paul. So yeah, we'll take.
Still don't want them.
Yeah, we'll
they
take.
Can keep Tatis.
They can keep Darvish too.
Yeah, I think we'll be active hopefully at the trade deadline, and I hope it's for some not only a star player but a playoff veteran player.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't want to see us make a big trade at the deadline. If this thing is cooking the way we think it's going to, don't affect it. Don't try to. It's like when you have too many chefs in the kitchen. I might be making a really great marinara sauce, right? and I've got my ingredients and I'm putting them all together. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in that doesn't know anything about what they're doing and they throw in a bunch more basil than I was planning on putting in. And now the whole thing's ruined. And that's where I think the trade deadline is both a blessing and a curse, because you get those big trades that sometimes work out wonderfully. Randy Johnson back in the day with the Houston Astros comes to mind. But then you get those trades where it's like, well, we tried and it failed. So going by the logic of our ownership, I'm expecting a 1 or 2 player swing, nothing more, and it's not going to be somebody who's going to even be a starter.
Kevin?
I think if you can look at it, obviously we've talked about adding a rotation piece, the upper level of the rotation, but it's got to be a guy that's younger and under control, which is what they like if you're going to give up, some of our prime prospects.
I think I'm getting kind of like a 2016 feel where, obviously didn't do much in the offseason heading into 2016. They kind of let it play out, saw what kind of direction the team was going to go. They identified the need and they made the trade. That's when they acquired Andrew Miller. And I remember at that time, and I think Brandon Geyer came on around then too. And I remember being like, well, who else? We're making this big run. Who else are we going to add? And like Paul said, they didn't add anyone else. They identified the one need. They got the guy for that one need and rode that guy literally till his arm fell off to the World Series. Right? So I kind of get that. And they gave up quite a haul for Andrew Miller. I mean, I know, Clint Frazier didn't turn out to be much, but at the time that was a huge package that they gave up for a left-handed specialist. I think this year, I think they held on to these prospects for a reason. I think they're going to be pretty loose with who they're going to move. I don't know that you have many untouchables. I mean, maybe the big 3, maybe it's only 2 out of the big 3. We don't know how they evaluate guys, and it's going to be fascinating to see who they see as the middle infield of the future, who they see as, the rotation of the future. And these pieces that we all as fans have so many strong opinions on, just from what we see and the type of player we like. I think we're going to learn so much. Things are going to be a lot more clear come July this year, because I do think, and who knows, maybe it's a bat. Maybe the opposite of what Kevin says happens. Maybe Josh Bell doesn't pan out. I mean, I know we hate to say that, but maybe the rotation is cooking, right? Maybe Tristan comes back.
That wouldn't be a bad thing.
Right. Maybe Bieber's dealing. Savali is the Savali that he's shown flashes that he could be. And, the 4 and 5 is just kind of the 4 and 5. But maybe Tristan comes back in June and the rotation's not our biggest issue, right? Maybe it's a bat that they need. If that's the need, I think the philosophy remains the same. Identify the need, fill the need, and keep it moving. See how far we can ride this thing. But I don't really see a scenario where they're not buyers, but it brings up the point of that extra wild card spot too. I think a lot more teams think that they're in contention, and you don't see as many sellers at the deadline that you used to see in the past. So I think it's going to be interesting what teams kind of fall out of the race, so we can kind of see like who may be available, who may fill that need.
Yeah, I believe one of those big 3 from the minors are going to come up, and potentially, if what we're talking about is wanting to win a World Series this year, the first time in 75 years. That's why I have my 1948 hat on. And can one of those guys come up and fill a rotation spot and become a very, very young World Series MVP?
That would be fantastic. And we talked about this a bit earlier. We all kind of are in the same boat here. The Guardians are winning the division, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Because you look at this division, the only team that truly scares me, and this is my hot take, so brace yourself, I'm worried about the Detroit Tigers.
What?
Whoa.
The Detroit Tigers,
dumpster fire to me.
The Detroit Tigers just lowered the fences, so the power alley isn't Triples Alley anymore. It's much easier to hit a home run to right field. It's also easier to hit a home run to dead center. They moved in the fences 10 feet. They're still the second deepest field, to center. The only field deeper is Coors Field. But they also lowered the wall in center field a 1.5 feet. So all those wall scrapers and those long fly balls that we were dealing with in Comerica Park are a thing of the past. And I think a young team like Detroit, led by a soon-to-be retiring Miguel Cabrera on his farewell tour, could be a dangerous threat. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. In fact, I will tell you the best they'll ever do is going to be second place. But I think people are going to look at Detroit in May and they're going to go, oh, what's going on out there? Because something definitely happened out there.
I think all the moving in the fence and lowering the walls just to help Cabrera in his final season.
So he can.
That's a hot take right there. It's all a conspiracy to get Miggy some home runs before he heads out.
Well, I mean, everybody's worried about the White Sox and the Twins. What did the Twins do in the offseason? They got back the shortstop that 2 teams turned down
by default,
because of medical problems. You don't turn down a guy for medical just because you just don't want to pay him. It means somebody looked at his ankle and went, wow, I wouldn't give him $900 million. You shouldn't either. And then the Twins still went, not only are we going to do that, we're going to debut our new uniforms with him. Yeah. This will be a nice little combo package we got going on here. The Twins don't bother me at all.
No, I think when you have so many guys, Correa, Polanco, Buxton, Kirilloff even, they can't stay on the field. Kepler. None of these guys have proven that they can stay healthy for the majority of a season. Are they dangerous when all those guys are healthy? Sure. Like they can hit with the best of them, but they're very rarely ever healthy at the same time. And they gave up their best hitter.
Yeah.
To get Pablo Lopez, who, I mean, Pablo Lopez is probably like the 2 in their rotation. And that's pushing it for him. I think he's a good 3. 2's, we'll see. We'll see if Pablo Lopez can stay healthy too. And, Tyler Mahle wasn't the healthiest. They got some damaged goods from Cincinnati last year, but they don't scare me. Not with that pitching. Their pitching is not improved enough, and they re-signed Emilio Pagan, Guardians MVP. So not scared of the Twins until further notice.
Paul, you might be onto something because last year our record versus the Twins 13-6, Royals 12-7, White Sox 12-7, Tigers 10-9.
Yeah.
So you want to talk
I've been
about
to enough
matchups.
Tigers games there. I've been to Guardians games in Comerica Park. They were hitting deep fly balls that were just dying. And now those are home runs or doubles off the wall. And that's going to be a huge opportunity for us because we face Detroit in Comerica in April. So that's a good opportunity for us to get in the swing of things. The White Sox. Everybody's worried about the White Sox. The White Sox lost Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
So now their biggest power threat is Tim Anderson. And no offense to Tim Anderson, he's not a power guy. That's not his game. He is a clutch player who is tremendously defensively skilled and has a moderately decent bat. That doesn't scare me at all. None of the Central Division scares me. I'm scared when I look at our roster and go, you guys got to go up against this.
Yeah, I'm scared come the playoffs. I don't want to lose in the ALDS again. For me, it's pretty much like gearing up to advance in the playoffs. It's not so much the Central Division that scares me. Like we mentioned, I just don't want to see Cal Quantrill pitching 2 games in a series in October. That's why mainly I would like to see him upgrade that, but I'm with you. Like the same reasons you mentioned. The White Sox are like a bunch of pieces of a puzzle that you like wet and moisten the corners to fit in.
Yep.
They just do not fit together. Like I know they have a new manager now. They got Tony La Russa out of there, unfortunately. But it's something about the culture there and the vibe that it just feels like there are a bunch of guys who don't get along. They don't play well together. It's like they don't anticipate where each other is going to be in the outfield, on the bases. They just do a bunch of weird stuff that their heads aren't really in the game. And same thing, Tim Anderson, Robert, Jimenez. How many games are they going to miss this year? So these, Yoan Moncada too. So again, I don't want to act cocky like the Guardians are just going to run away with it and it's never going to be close because I'm sure somebody is going to challenge them throughout the year, and I'm sure the Guardians are going to struggle. They're going to have periods where they struggle while they try to figure out this pitching situation, but there is nobody that I trust more to do that than Tito. He gets the most out of his young players. I know there's certain complaints people have about him. He does not have Brian Shaw at his disposal right now.
He could, though.
Not yet.
He could.
Yeah, the White Sox did release him from his minor league contract. So let's just say our prayers tonight that Tito does not get his little toy back, because
I'm sure he texted him twice already.
Right. And it would be the perfect time. Like, the buses are headed out of Goodyear to head up to Seattle, and here comes Brian Shaw, like, running up the road trying to hop on the bus. Like, we almost made it without him.
There's plenty of apartments to rent downtown still.
He's probably just gonna meet him back in Cleveland and like be in the clubhouse, like get his locker all together himself. It wouldn't shock me if he's a coach, whatever, but please don't be like a main piece in our bullpen. Like, that ship has sailed. But all right, guys, let's start by wrapping this up. We'll go around kind of in a circle and state what you think our record is going to be and how you think the season ends.
Kevin, Paul?
And we're going to save this. We're going to write this stuff down. And at the All-Star break, we're going to go back and we're going to have this round table again. And we're going to see how smart we looked or how absolutely ridiculous we look come
it's going to be fun.
Mid-season.
That's going to be fun.
Go ahead, Paul. Start it off.
I've got us with 89 wins, which is one higher than the Pacoda projections. We're going to the ALDS, and that's it. You can't beat Houston. You can't beat the Yankees. And until you can, you're not making it out of the DS. I hate to say that, but realistically, we didn't really do enough to beat Houston and New York. And even though Aaron Judge is basically 90% of the Yankee offense, we had trouble with Aaron Judge when we faced him. When we had to challenge him, he burned us. He burned us bad. That's a problem. So as much as I would love to sit here and tell you we're going to the World Series and we're going to beat Atlanta in 4 games, it's just not going to happen. There's a couple more pieces we need, and I'm not even sure what they are yet.
I think if we stay healthy, if we can get by the 2+ months without Tristan, like everything that we've talked about, Josh Bell is a big year. And if we can acquire that nice piece in the rotation at the deadline, I'm going to go 95 to 96 wins. And I'll say a World Series appearance. I won't go as far as a championship, but I'll say a World Series appearance, and we'll see what happens from there.
Okay, against who then?
Ooh, putting me on the spot, are you?
Well, you can't say we're going to make it to the World Series and not tell us who's going to win the World Series at that point.
Yeah, I got.
We'll go with Atlanta.
They're a dangerous team. They're a dangerous team.
That NL East is tough.
Yeah, it is.
Ooh.
Well, guys, 1948, last World Series championship. Like I said, 75 years since we've been there. To hold the World Series championship. Heck, I don't even think the trophy existed back then. I've never even seen whatever we won back in 48. But there's
it was created in like the 70s, actually.
Yeah. So there's a World Series trophy now that we desire. We've all desired it. I've lived through 95, lived through 97, 2016. We've been knocking on the door. And this franchise has proven year in year now with Terry Francona as our manager that we are going to win. So I believe that we're going to duplicate by winning our division again. I think we're going to get that 3 seed just like we did last year. And you're probably going to have the same 1 and 2 seeds between the Yankees and the Astros. And then the wild cards, you might have a little bit of a shuffle too. But I think we're going to go on to that ALDS and we're going to take out the Yankees because that's what we would do on our way to the World Series. And then maybe the Astros get upset. It seems like a bad matchup with us in the playoffs in the past. Maybe we get a wild card in there, make it to the World Series, and finally win the World Series this year with an MVP that is going to start as a starting pitcher in the minor leagues.
Ooh, you got your Jarrett Wright guy. Who's it going to be? You don't know?
I want to say Gavin Williams, but that would be based on, Espino not being healthy at some point this year. There's so many factors, guys. We know it.
They might have to speed someone up, you know.
Don't
Yes.
forget about Tanner Baby.
Joey
Yes.
Cantillo, he's on the 40. If Gaddis and Curry struggle, I think we see Joey Cantillo
Maybe
pretty
we see
early,
two of
too.
them.
Yeah, good possibility.
So I'm with Kevin. So let me put an asterisk by this too. This
A
prediction
Houston
did
style
happen.
asterisk.
Yeah, this did happen. I made this prediction before the Tristan news, but I'm going to keep it the same. I think we're going to finish 90 and 72. So a win more than Paul. But I do think they make that big trade. This year is giving me total 2016 vibes. I think we're going to ride it to the World Series. And I think I'm not ready. I don't know I think we're going to play Philly. I think it's going to be Philly and Cleveland, which would be such a cool World Series. I'm not ready to say
Come on,
we're
Mel.
going to win it. I got to see what we
We
do
are
in
a part
July.
of Believe Land Media Group. Believe Land. Do not forget that.
I get scared I'm going to manifest something. Like if I say we're going to lose in 6, I'm so scared I'm going to manifest that. But I do. I think we're going to lose. I think we're a couple pieces away still. I think next year is like our big year. But I don't think Houston's winning the West.
Texas?
I don't.
Seattle.
No, Seattle.
I do like Texas.
But
I like Texas. They're sneaky good.
Scary. Yep. Houston better look out. I'm telling you, there's something in my bones that feels regression from them. And I don't know if it's the Altuve injury. I don't know if it's, their rookie. Is he ready to take the reins, this soon? I do love their bullpen. I do think their rotation is still really, really good. I just feel regression.
Verlander has to slow down at some point, doesn't he?
You would think, but I don't know. He's like the Tom Brady of baseball at this point. But you're
Verlander's
right.
in New York.
He's in the Mets, yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We don't
He
have to
slowed down
worry
so
about
much
him.
he changed divisions.
Oh, all right, never mind.
Yeah,
I forgot
he's
all
in
about
the
that.
NL.
That's right. All right, forget
They
about
got
it.
what's Hunter Brown? Is he their rookie? I think he's like their Daniel Espino. He's stepping in to take Verlander's spot, but I don't know. We'll see if Jeremy Pena duplicates.
Framber Valdez.
Yeah, Framber Valdez he's really good. Christian Javier, he's locked up. I don't know. I think Houston needs to look out for Texas. I do think Seattle makes the leap this year, though. I really like their team too. They're sneaky good. It's going to be fun, but I think the Guardians make it to the World Series, but I think we lose to Philly. Philly made it last year. They lost. I think it's their turn to win. I hope I'm wrong. Please, baseball gods, make me wrong here.
I love you guys, but I'm going to still see you at the parade in November.
Well, we all hope you're right.
We all hope you're right.
I would love that.
I'll gladly take my L if we end up winning the World Series this year. No one will be happier than me.
Me too.
I've got paid time off that's bookmarked for the parade in November. It's always been that way. That was part of the interview. It's like, yeah, if the Cleveland baseball team wins the World Series, I'm out. I'll be at the parade.
Oh yeah, I'll be blowing all my money on playoff tickets again, playoff merch. I'll go all in. All right, guys, this was an absolute blast. We ran a little over an hour here. I can't wait to revisit this at the All-Star break. It was a lot of fun last year. Some I was dead on about, some things I was way off about. So it's gonna be fun to look back on. Do any of you guys have any plugs? Paul, you want to shout out your new podcast? Let people know where to find you.
Yeah, Double Play CLE. We just dropped our second episode yesterday. Me and Jay. It's available on BelieveLandMedia.LLC.com and all of our, including Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, probably missing something, and of course right here on YouTube if you're watching it. So yeah, do that. And then Ohio Championship Wrestling coverage. We've got a show coming up on April the 8th. So definitely if you're in Akron, Canton area, come check out Ohio Championship Wrestling. I'm the voice of it.
The best independent wrestling play-by-play man in the business.
Well, lucky
Yeah.
to
You haven't heard enough
Paulie.
independent wrestling. You haven't heard enough independent wrestling commentators. I still got a lot of work to do there.
Kevin, any general Believe Land announcements?
Nothing as of right now, but stay tuned. That's all I'll say.
Not done yet. Like the
Not done
hashtag
yet.
this
Yep.
podcast
Just getting started.
I want to thank everybody for listening once again. We want to thank you for helping us become one of the most listened to, most watched Guardians podcasts in just a short time. We wouldn't be here without you. We are so super stoked to bring in the 2023 season. And when James and I join you next week, we are going to be recapping real baseball games that count. And I cannot be happier.
Yes.
Make sure you go back, BelieveLandMediaLLC.com, get caught up on all the Guardians of the CLE podcast episodes, along with all the other general sports articles, content, podcasts. It's your number one place to be for all things Cleveland sports, high school sports, Ohio State Buckeyes, wrestling, and everything in between. Everybody enjoy the game Thursday night. Get some rest tonight and tomorrow night so you could stay up till 2 a.m. and watch the Guardians take down my prediction AL West winner, Seattle Mariners. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
Go Guards.